Losing is not the enemy of success. It is its teacher, its forge, and its proving ground. Every defeat, every setback, every closed door carries a lesson that no victory can provide. The art of losing lies not in surrendering to despair, but in confronting reality with clarity, learning from mistakes, and refusing to let failure define worth. Those who master loss do not avoid it. They embrace it, analyze it, and allow it to sharpen judgment, resilience, and character. True strength emerges when disappointment is transformed into insight, frustration into strategy, and endings into the foundation for greater beginnings. Accepting loss as a necessary part of growth is one of the most challenging yet vital lessons in life, because human instinct naturally resists failure, rejection, and disappointment. From the earliest experiences, we are taught to celebrate success and avoid failure, to seek recognition and avoid criticism. Yet the truth is that growth, achievement, and character are forged in the crucible of loss. Every setback carries with it an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and to strengthen the foundation of future success. When loss is resisted or denied, it becomes a source of frustration, bitterness, or stagnation. When it is embraced as a teacher, it becomes a source of insight, endurance, and clarity. The first step in accepting loss is acknowledging it without denial. Denial prolongs pain, obscures truth, and prevents reflection. Acknowledgement is not an admission of weakness, but a recognition of reality. By confronting loss honestly, you gain the ability to assess what went wrong, what was beyond control, and what can be improved. This clarity is the starting point for meaningful adaptation. Accepting loss also requires shifting perspective. Instead of viewing defeat as proof of inadequacy or misfortune, it must be seen as an essential component of the learning process. Each loss provides data, information about strategy, effort, timing, and character. Those who resist this perspective become trapped in resentment or avoidance, while those who embrace it transform adversity into progress. Emotional resilience is built through repeated encounters with loss. Each disappointment endured without surrender strengthens the capacity to remain calm, focused, and determined in future challenges. The mind learns to tolerate discomfort, uncertainty, and the temporary sting of failure. This resilience is a prerequisite for sustained achievement, because life rarely unfolds in a straight line, and setbacks are inevitable for anyone pursuing meaningful goals. Accepting loss also develops humility. Loss reminds you that control is limited, that outcomes are influenced by factors beyond effort alone, and that perfection is an illusion. This humility keeps ambition grounded while reinforcing the value of preparation, persistence, and learning. Self-awareness deepens when loss is accepted. By examining mistakes, identifying patterns, and reflecting on decisions, you gain insight into your strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. This introspection turns loss from a negative event into a catalyst for self-mastery. Acceptance of loss also encourages patience. Immediate success is rare, and growth is often incremental. By recognizing that setbacks are part of the process, you cultivate the patience needed to sustain long-term effort, refine strategies, and pursue goals without giving in to frustration or despair. Discipline emerges naturally from acceptance. When the mind is no longer consumed by regret or avoidance, energy can be directed toward constructive action. Effort becomes intentional, focused, and consistent because it is based on learning from experience rather than reacting to disappointment. Accepting loss strengthens decision-making. Each failure provides feedback that can inform future choices, reduce errors, and enhance judgment. Over time, accumulated experience from confronting loss leads to better planning, greater foresight, and increased adaptability. It also builds confidence rooted in reality rather than illusion. You gain assurance not from never failing, but from knowing that failure does not destroy you and that you have the capacity to recover, adapt, and grow stronger. By accepting loss as an integral part of growth, setbacks become teachers, disappointment becomes guidance, and adversity becomes a foundation. This mindset transforms failure from an obstacle into an essential ingredient for achievement, character development, and the continuous pursuit of excellence. Learning lessons hidden within failure is one of the most powerful ways to transform adversity into progress, because failure, while painful, is inherently informative. Each misstep, defeat, or setback carries insight that cannot be gleaned through success alone. When approached with reflection and honesty, failure becomes a roadmap to improvement, highlighting gaps in knowledge, weaknesses in strategy, and limitations in effort or preparation. Many people react to failure with denial, frustration, or blame, treating it as a judgment rather than a teacher. And in doing so, they squander the invaluable guidance it provides. The first step in uncovering lessons within failure is observation without judgment. By analyzing what went wrong, you remove emotion from the equation and gain clarity about the factors that contributed to the outcome. This requires courage, because honesty with oneself is uncomfortable and often exposes shortcomings that are easier to ignore. Failure teaches specificity. It shows precisely where assumptions were faulty, where effort was insufficient, and where skills or knowledge were lacking. Without this specificity, growth remains unfocused and ineffective. Each failure carries unique instruction that is tailored to the individual, revealing what must change for future success. Learning from failure also requires responsibility. Assigning blame to others, circumstances, or luck obscures the lessons embedded in experience. Accepting responsibility for your role in the outcome allows insight to be applied, turning a negative event into a constructive foundation. Reflection after failure strengthens critical thinking. It encourages analysis of cause and effect, long-term consequences, and alternative approaches. This analytical habit enhances judgment and decision-making, enabling better choices in future challenges. Failure also fosters adaptability. When initial plans collapse or expectations are unmet, you are forced to reconsider strategy, innovate, and adjust approach. This flexibility is critical for navigating the unpredictable nature of life, where rigid adherence to one method often leads to repeated setbacks. Emotional intelligence grows through learning from failure. Disappointment, frustration, and self-doubt must be acknowledged, managed, and directed into productive insight. Over time, resilience develops, allowing you to confront future obstacles with composure rather than panic or despair. Failure also strengthens humility. It reminds you that no outcome is guaranteed, that control is limited, and that growth is ongoing. This humility encourages openness to feedback, collaboration, and continuous learning, all of which are essential for sustained success. Each lesson extracted from failure enhances self-awareness. You understand your strengths and weaknesses more accurately, recognize patterns in behavior or decision-making, and gain insight into personal motivation and discipline. This awareness informs future action and creates a cycle of improvement. Learning from failure builds confidence in a paradoxical way. By seeing that mistakes do not destroy potential, you become more willing to take calculated risks, embrace challenges, and pursue goals without fear of setback. Failure teaches perseverance. Lessons learned encourage continuation rather than surrender, reinforcing the habit of persistent effort even under adversity. Over time, accumulated insights from repeated failure create mastery. Skills are honed, judgment is refined, and strategy becomes increasingly effective because each setback has provided critical data to guide improvement. By intentionally seeking the lessons hidden within failure, disappointment transforms into instruction, setbacks become guidance, and challenges evolve into stepping stones. This process ensures that failure is not wasted, that growth is accelerated, and that every misstep contributes directly to the development of competence, resilience, and ultimate success. Transforming disappointment into strategy is one of the most essential skills for achieving success because disappointment is inevitable, yet its impact depends entirely on how it is processed and acted upon. When expectations are unmet, plans fail, or outcomes are unfavorable, it is easy to succumb to frustration, blame, or despair. Most people allow disappointment to immobilize them, creating a cycle of regret and stagnation. However, those who learn to convert disappointment into strategy gain a powerful advantage because they do not waste energy resisting reality. They analyze it, extract insight, and chart a course forward. The first step in this transformation is honest assessment. Disappointment often masks important information about choices, timing, effort, and circumstances. By examining what happened without defensiveness or avoidance, clarity emerges about what went wrong, what could have been done differently, and which factors were beyond control. This clarity forms the foundation of strategy, allowing decisions to be based on understanding rather than reaction. Transforming disappointment into strategy also requires emotional regulation. Frustration and anger are natural, but they are unproductive when they dominate thought or action. Learning to acknowledge emotions without being controlled by them enables calm, analytical thinking, which is necessary for developing effective plans. Strategy born from disappointment is proactive, not reactive. It focuses on solutions rather than complaints, and on actionable steps rather than dwelling on loss. Each setback becomes a source of intelligence that informs future choices, improving efficiency, effectiveness, and judgment. Disappointment teaches prioritization. When outcomes are unfavorable, it becomes clearer which efforts were misaligned, which goals need recalibration, and which habits or practices require reinforcement. This insight allows resources, time, energy, focus to be allocated more effectively, increasing the likelihood of success in future endeavors. Transforming disappointment into strategy also builds resilience. Each challenge faced without surrender strengthens the ability to recover, adapt, and persist under pressure. Resilience is reinforced because the mind learns that failure is temporary, setbacks are informative, and progress is cumulative. Over time, repeated application of strategy derived from disappointment cultivates foresight, the ability to anticipate obstacles, prepare contingency plans, and adjust approach becomes second nature, reducing the impact of future setbacks and increasing confidence in decision-making. Strategy formed through disappointment also strengthens problem-solving skills. It encourages creative thinking, experimentation, and innovation because conventional approaches have been tested and found wanting. The lessons learned fuel improvement and adaptability. Disappointment also sharpens self-awareness. By examining why an expectation was unmet, insight is gained into personal strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and blind spots. This awareness improves judgment, enhances planning, and informs behavior, leading to more intentional and effective action. Converting disappointment into strategy reinforces discipline. Effort becomes deliberate rather than reactionary because choices are guided by understanding rather than emotion. Accountability replaces blame, and consistent action replaces passivity. Over time, this process fosters a mindset oriented toward growth. Setbacks are no longer feared or resented, but anticipated as opportunities for analysis and learning. Strategic thinking becomes habitual, creating a cycle where disappointment is continually transformed into improvement. By turning disappointment into strategy, setbacks become resources, frustration becomes insight, and unfulfilled expectations become a roadmap for future success. This approach ensures that adversity does not halt progress, but actively informs it, building competence, resilience, and an increasingly effective pathway toward goals. Building resilience through setbacks is one of the most critical skills for sustained growth and success because life inevitably challenges every person, often in ways that feel unfair, overwhelming, or unexpected. Setbacks test not only skill and preparation, but also patience, emotional strength, and determination. They arrive unannounced, and while some may be minor inconveniences, others strike at the core of confidence and progress. Resilience is the ability to endure these challenges, recover, and continue forward with renewed focus, turning adversity into a mechanism for growth rather than allowing it to define limitations. The first step in building resilience is perspective. Setbacks are not indicators of personal failure or proof of inadequacy. They are experiences that provide information about what works, what doesn't, and what requires adjustment. When setbacks are approached as lessons, they become tools for improvement rather than sources of despair. Resilience also requires adaptability. Challenges often demand that plans, expectations, or methods be altered. The ability to pivot, experiment, and adjust strategies without abandoning long-term goals is central to sustained progress. Flexibility prevents stagnation and cultivates a mindset that seeks solutions rather than fixates on problems. Emotional regulation is equally essential. Setbacks naturally evoke frustration, disappointment, and sometimes anger. Learning to experience these emotions without letting them dictate action creates a stable foundation for deliberate, effective responses. This emotional stability allows the mind to focus on problem solving, reflection, and consistent effort rather than reaction or avoidance. Building resilience also involves incremental recovery. No setback is overcome instantaneously. Progress often occurs in small steps, each reinforcing the ability to endure, adapt, and persevere. Patience in this process strengthens mental toughness and establishes the habit of continued effort even when results are slow or unclear. Resilience is closely tied to self-awareness. Each setback provides insight into strengths, weaknesses, and patterns of behavior that may have contributed to the outcome. Reflecting honestly on these factors enhances judgment, informs future decisions, and ensures that mistakes are not repeated. Accountability also reinforces resilience. Accepting responsibility for choices and actions, rather than blaming circumstances or others, ensures that control is maintained over what can be changed. This mindset fosters empowerment and prevents passivity, making setbacks catalysts for action rather than sources of stagnation. Persistence is another key aspect of resilience. Continued effort despite repeated failures or obstacles strengthens confidence in one's abilities. Each act of persistence reinforces self-trust, proving that challenges can be endured and overcome with consistent focus and effort. Building resilience through setbacks also strengthens problem-solving skills. Encountering repeated obstacles encourages creative thinking, experimentation, and strategic adjustment. Over time, this practice develops the capacity to navigate complex challenges with clarity and effectiveness. Community and support can enhance resilience as well. Sharing experiences, learning from others who have overcome setbacks, and receiving guidance or encouragement provides perspective and reinforces determination. However, internal fortitude remains central because ultimately, the ability to recover depends on personal mindset, effort, and self-discipline. Resilience transforms identity. Over time, repeated encounters with setbacks teach that adversity is temporary, that endurance is possible, and that growth occurs through challenge. Confidence shifts from being dependent on smooth circumstances to being grounded in the capacity to persist, adapt, and thrive regardless of external conditions. By building resilience through setbacks, challenges become opportunities, difficulties become preparation, and each obstacle strengthens the ability to endure, adapt, and pursue goals with unwavering focus, determination, and courage. Using endings as foundations for new beginnings is one of the most powerful ways to transform life's inevitable closures into opportunities for growth, because every ending carries within it the seeds of renewal, insight, and potential. Endings are rarely comfortable. They may arrive as lost relationships, failed projects, missed opportunities, or unexpected departures, but resisting them or mourning them indefinitely prevents forward movement. Those who learn to view endings as platforms for what comes next gain a unique advantage because they do not cling to the past or allow it to dictate their future. The first step in this transformation is acceptance. Acknowledging that something has concluded without denial or prolonged resistance creates clarity, allowing the mind to shift from regret to purpose. Acceptance does not mean passivity. It means recognizing the reality of circumstances and preparing to act intentionally in response. Endings provide valuable information. They reveal patterns, behaviors, decisions, and circumstances that contributed to the closure, allowing reflection and learning. By analyzing what worked, what failed, and what could be done differently, endings become a source of insight, guiding future choices and strategies. Using endings as foundations also requires reframing perspective. Instead of seeing closure as loss, it is viewed as preparation. One door closes so that energy, focus, and attention can be redirected toward new opportunities, ambitions, or growth that were previously inaccessible or overlooked. Emotional resilience is essential in this process. Endings often bring grief, disappointment, or uncertainty. Transforming them into beginnings requires the ability to experience these emotions fully without being immobilized by them. Emotional regulation allows thought and action to remain clear, constructive, and forward-focused. Endings also foster creativity. The necessity to move beyond what was familiar encourages exploration of new approaches, ideas, and directions. It forces innovation and adaptability, which are critical for progress in an unpredictable world. Reflection is another key element. By reviewing the circumstances surrounding an ending, insight is gained into personal strengths, weaknesses, patterns, and areas for growth. This self-awareness informs decisions, improves judgment, and enhances readiness for future endeavors. Accountability strengthens the process as well. Accepting one's role in the outcome, whether through actions, choices, or preparation, ensures that lessons are internalized rather than ignored. This reinforces self-mastery and prevents repetition of past mistakes. Endings also cultivate patience. Transformation and new beginnings rarely occur instantaneously. By respecting the timing of closure and allowing space for reflection, the transition into the next phase is smoother, more deliberate, and more sustainable. Discipline is reinforced because attention shifts from lamenting what has ended to intentionally creating what is next. Each step taken toward a new goal, guided by the insights of the past, builds momentum and confidence. Using endings as foundations fosters autonomy. Forward movement becomes self-directed rather than dependent on external circumstances or validation. You take ownership of your trajectory, applying lessons learned to shape outcomes rather than being shaped by them. Over time, this approach strengthens resilience, emotional intelligence, and strategic thinking. Endings no longer induce fear or paralysis. They become a natural part of a cycle in which closure signals preparation for advancement. By converting endings into platforms for new beginnings, loss transforms into opportunity, grief becomes insight, and closure becomes strategy. Each conclusion lays the groundwork for growth. Each transition becomes an invitation to improve. And every ending, when approached intentionally, ensures that the next chapter is stronger, wiser, and more aligned with purpose, vision, and potential.